Good day, learners. We are dealing again with public admin. We are dealing with module 5, hierarchy of authorities. If you can recall, we dealt with interim government and interim constitution in our first session for module 5 in the series for online. So basically, that's my name. Okay, and the book reference, I didn't give it on the previous one, but the book reference which we are dealing with is the Public Administration N4 series, and written by Hazel Wilson and Kingston O'Kee-Grandley. Okay, and in all the slides you'll be seeing that footer there. That's the book. If you're going to use this book, it should be able and enough for you to be able to meet the requirements which you need for the exam for N4, Public Admin N4. We move to the next slide. What we're basically going to be dealing with, we've already covered this introduction. We're going to be looking at a section which is not listed here, but we need as part of the continuation of the Constitution. Here we talked about the Interim Constitution, which was the act of the Constitution, that was Act 200 of 1993. And what we are dealing with, this Interim Constitution brought about the Constitution which was firmly kind of confirmed, which the government and the country of South Africa basically is using currently. And that one is Act, you can move to the next slide, it's the Constitution, that's Act 108, 1996. When you talk about in South African terms, in terms of governance, and you mention the Constitution, you need to be understanding as a student, as a learner of public administration, that the Constitution is also known as Act 108, 1996. Those are technical terms which you need to understand. That when someone mentions Act 1008, 1996, means the Constitution. The Constitution, any constitution of a country has specific values which it's supposed to bring about. A constitution promotes human rights and freedom and dignity and elimination of discrimination, and it cements or strengthens the rule of law and the Constitution as the supreme law on top. As we said in the Interim Constitution, for the elections of 1994 to happen, there was need to have the Constitution. That's why they needed to have the Interim Constitution at that stage. So always in any country where there's democratic rule, you need to have the Constitution on the top. In situations where there's no democratic rule, usually you have the president who will be on the top. But in a democratic rule, we are having you need to have the Constitution. For instance, you have the executive coming next. The executive here, that's where you have the president and everyone, okay? But in a dictatorial kind of rule, you do not need the Constitution. Usually the president will be the one ruling the top. You can try to find out, have an exercise, find out governments which are led by the president and there's no Constitution. The Constitution usually will get thrown away. Sometimes the Constitution could be there, but they would still rule by decree. If we happen to the previous one, okay? So here we do understand, and it gives the citizens the right to vote. A constitution should give the citizens the right to vote, meaning that at any given stage where we have the president or the cabinet, they can be removed at any given time, because when the things are not going right, the citizens have a means of removing the people, and these people are not supposed to stay forever. But we know in some governments that the rulers stay and continue forever. meaning that the chance is not usually there. Even when elections are being organized, they may not even be free and fair. The guy continues and will rule for 30 years, you hear 40 years, okay? And the Constitution encourages periodic elections through multi-party systems, that people and parties are respected and every outcome should be fair, that every party will have a chance, an equal chance of being able to be in power. Okay. So the South African Constitution, as specifically as we see, it became law on 11th, 1996. Notice that it was around 1996. By that time, the first elections, multi-party elections for South Africa had already happened. The free, democratic multi-party elections, which allowed different kinds of people and everyone who was of age to be able to vote, unlike when the apartheid time. So it means this constitution of ours, of 100 Act 1008, happened after the general elections. So it came in 2 years later after the general elections, and that time the president was of course Mandela. So it replaced the transitional, the interim constitution. Remember, our interim constitution is the 200, Act 200 of 1993. It was replaced. This constitution was only temporary to make sure that there will be an interim government so that people can vote by 1994. And once the voting happened, after 2 years, the final constitution was completed, and now it came into play. This was now obsolete. It was removed. So why is it necessary to have a constitution, for instance? Democratic governments are guided or authorized by the constitution. If it's a democratic government, democratic rule, where you need to have people deciding who is supposed to be in power, they need to be guided by the constitution, the rules which are already set aside in the constitution. It guarantees, the constitution should guarantee that human rights are not abused by the executives. We talked about the executives as being the president and the ministers who are in power at that particular time. The public officials, you're going to be, as a learner of public administration, you become an official when you get a job in government, for instance. We know of stories of people who we've seen in the news. They've abused the powers they were given, and there's corruption. If you're going to find someone on the road and they would stop you and then they expect, or you have something and you remove because you didn't move with a license or you don't have a license and whatever, and they caught you drunk or something driving, and you say, okay, you know what, I can give you cold drink. The moment you are doing that, you are abusing the power which has been given unto you by the Constitution. So the Constitution guarantees that human rights are not abused by public officials. The moment you are corrupt, you are abusing the rights of your community, the rights of the country, by taking a bribe. Public or groups, sometimes people do behave so badly, you do things like, we know of people who are abusing children and women, and you have situations where people are being killed. When you are doing that, the Constitution also comes and has to control you in specific ways when the judges and the judiciary come into play. Okay? So it's about the executive, the people who are the rulers, the public officials who are in these government offices, the public as you, the person on the street or at home, abusing your family or whatever, groups of people when they gather together and commit a crime, and individuals at any given point. And then the Constitution also is necessary because it will assist the government in decision making based on the rules found in the Constitution. How does this happen? In situations where we've had lockdown, you've had people wanting to challenge the government about the decisions they made, that the decisions made in lockdown 3, level 3, the decisions which were made in lockdown level 4, they are not right, okay? Because it means that those who are challenging them go back to the Constitution and say, the Constitution said the government is not supposed, the executive, the president and his ministers are not supposed to decide on how to control us without consulting the other members of parliament. Okay? So, in level 5, which they told us it was okay probably that it was allowed, but there was no accommodation. So those things get challenged. Whoever will take you to court will be challenging you on the basis of the Constitution, which it says that you have done something wrong according to the Constitution of the country of South Africa. It explains the necessity also for the Constitution, another point. It explains different levels of areas of government and their powers. The different levels, like you have the executive, as we said, the people who are ruling the government. You have the judiciary, the people who determine the laws, read the Constitution and interpret it. Okay? And then you have the people like the municipalities. Those are the different kinds of, and the government departments, how they relate to each other. The Constitution basically maps out and mentions who has power for what. The local municipality will have powers in that local municipality. They will not be the regional powers, like when you have the province, it will be the provincial on that level. So each one is already given the responsibility which they have to conclude and have. And another reason for the Constitution, it describes the different states of institutions and organs and their powers and relationships. We'll get to dwell deeper on this one on our next kind of session, and it makes the South Africa as a country a constitutional democracy, which depends on elections to elect the people in power. And it combines, and the Constitution will combine and store all the laws, meaning that when you have a Constitution, it's not one, it has a lot of different sections. As we will see in our Constitution, the South African Constitution, the different sections which you're going to be finding. So here we'll close by understanding that our current Constitution which we have is Act 1008, 1996, and it came in after Act 200, 1993, which was the old one, the Interim Constitution. And these are the benefits of the South African Constitution. The rest, we'll do more details in our next session.